started. All right, we are recording. All right, so welcome to Chromatic Shine. We're going to be exploring colored metallics in this class, so I hope you're ready to play with colors and get messy. We're going to be doing lots of experimenting in mad science, and it'll be great. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I got started with minis painting because of Reaper Miniatures. I got into their First Bones Kickstarter because my husband and I played D&D and Pathfinder and didn't have any miniatures, and we were kind of looking at pewter and how expensive, and a friend of ours said, "Hey, have you heard about this Kickstarter? You can get a whole lot of minis for $100." We said, "Oh, that sounds great. That's just what we're looking for." So we pledged, and you could get paint with your pledge. And I said, "Sure, let's get paint." And then I was like, well, I should figure out what to do with these paints. And so I found the Reaper forums, and the rest, as they say, is history. Yeah, that's how they get you. It's just one bones. It's just 3 bottles of paint. Okay, so we are going to be covering quite a few things in this class. And I will say that even though this is marked as an intermediate class, if you're a beginning painter, I do try to make it accessible, to as many painting experience ranges as possible. Because the only reason why I marked it as intermediate is I'm going to be discussing a few techniques that I don't have time to explain in depth in this class, like glazing, and it helps if you're already somewhat comfortable with mixing paints together, because we're going to be exploring the properties of metallic paints when they're and how they interact with regular paints. And there's some oddities. So, if you don't have a whole lot of painting experience, that's just fine. You're quite welcome. But you may need to, do a little bit of research afterwards to get a more full explanation of some of the things we're going to discuss. Okay, so I will be covering substitutions in just a moment. So hang in there. So, okay, so we're going to be talking about what metallic paints are, thinning metallic paints, different types of colored metallics, including premixed, and then how to make your own. We'll be talking about Demi Metallics and Pearlescent metallics. And then if we have time, I hope we do, we'll get into how to mix some different colored metallics together. Oh, and I do have a handout available for this class on my Discord channel. It's pinned there. It is not required for the class. It's more of a supplemental material for afterwards. So you don't need to run over and download it right now. Everything that I talk about in class will be in there. And then if you have any questions, please drop them in chat. There is the Q&A section as well. It's a little harder for me to see that because unless I put my mouse over it, it doesn't show me. So if you have a question, put it in chat, or you can come find me on Discord afterwards or on the Reaper forums. So I love to answer questions. Okay, so I put a list of required materials here. If you do not have all of these things, that is okay. You can still participate in class. So if you do not have Reaper's wash medium, you can use Flow Improver. You can use Airbrush medium. You can use water. That will make things a little bit more difficult for you, but if that's all you've got, then we can make it work. And I'll talk about why water isn't quite ideal a little bit later. If you don't have, let's see. So if you don't have blade steel, you can use any silver. Oh, it is just fine that if you have not put your dragon together yet, that's okay. You can't, if you want to put it together, just focus on putting on the little dragonfly and the right wing. Those are the only ones we're going to be working on, but you can still paint on them if they're not glued on. Great question. Let's see. So silver, any gold will work rather than dragon gold. So if you don't have any of the Reaper clears, then if you if you have any single pigment or translucent paints, those will work. Acrylic inks will work as well. If you don't have those, unfortunately, they aren't ones that you can quite substitute something for the same color. And I'll explain why when we get into color mixing. It has to do with the amount of stuff that's in them and the fact that the Reaper clears only have 1 or 2 pigments in them. So if you don't have the clears, you're still welcome to follow along. You may not be able to actually do a couple of the uh, examples, but I'll show everything. So, okay, let's see. If you don't have pearl white, I did put filigree silver on the materials list for when I created the class listing. The reason I have filigree silver on there is because if you don't have a pearl white or a metallic medium like this one, then filigree silver will sort of work. This is a Vallejo metal medium, or Pro Acryl also makes a metallic medium. Make sure that's on camera. So if you do not have something like that, stay. Okay, I'll put it there. Then filigree silver is okay. Oh, wash medium is that. Oops. Let's see what else. Any orange will work in place of the fire orange. And if you don't have these 2 figures, that's okay, because they're mostly going to be, just for I guess as test tiles, so to speak, if you're familiar with ceramics. So we're just going to be trying different mixtures on them. Okay, let's see. All right, lots of questions. So I hope that let's see, scale 75 ink intensity. I believe that would be a good substitute for the clears. I have not personally used their inks, but if it is an acrylic ink, it should work fine. It will be more watery, and so you might not end up having to thin much, but that will work color-wise. Let's see. Wash medium. It is, oh, let's see. I heard another instructor say that wash medium is like a mix of brush sealer and water and is similar in function to flow improver, but behaves a bit differently. That is a much better way of explaining it than I was going to come up with. It is, so flow improver is quite thin. I found that it's fairly close to thinning with water. Wash medium is a little bit thicker, and what it does is it helps to keep the paint bound together a little bit better than water does, which is important for when we're working with metallics. Because, let's see. Okay, we talked about that. Because, well, I'll get into that in a little bit. So let's see. Let me tidy up real quick here. So we've got required materials. Actually, I'll leave that up while I'm going to talk about terms. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few different terms in this class. And here's the things you'll need. And so I'll just define a few of those before we get started, because I know that not everybody uses terms quite the same way. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about thinning in this class. And if you're not already familiar with that, what that means is, well, I'll get that out. It means that it's making your paint a little bit thinner by adding some sort of clear, thin medium to it, whether that is water or flow improver or wash medium. There we go. You just want to tip over, don't you? There we go. And it helps make your paint flow a little bit more smoothly and it helps it to spread much more evenly, which is much more important for metallics because they tend to be thicker. I don't think I need to cover, let's see. We're going to talk about washes and glazes. And I've heard a lot of different descriptions for how to mix a glaze and how to mix a wash and what the consistency is and everything. And people compare it to different types of milk. And I just never found that that explanation worked well for me. So Rhonda Bender described a glaze as pretty close to paint water. It is extremely thin. There's not a lot of color to it. If you were to paint a little bit of glaze over text, then you could still read the text through very clearly, and it would just give a little hint of color. And you generally need a lot of layers when you're glazing in order to start seeing a noticeable difference. A wash is kind of anywhere between a glaze and right out of the bottle. You can have a thicker wash or a thinner wash depending on how much you thin your paint. And different thicknesses of wash, I guess I should say, work for different applications. Okay, true metallic metal is what we're going to be talking about in this class. That is using metallic paint, that's paint with shiny bits in it, to paint a surface to make it look like it's metallic. And then non-metallic metal is a technique where you use paint that does not have shiny bits in it to paint a surface to look like it's metallic. And both have their strengths and their weaknesses. I am a fan of both equally. I find that metallic paints read better in person because you can see how light interacts on the shiny surface as you move the miniature, whereas non-metallic metal tends to look better when it's photographed because it's closer to being an illusion, an optical illusion. And so when it's static, it reads quite nicely. And in person, it may not, because as you move the miniature around, the shines and the shadows don't move with the miniature. So, but both have excellent uses. And then Demi Metallics is where you mix a metallic paint with a non-metallic paint. And we'll get into that later. Okay, so what is a metallic paint? So a metallic paint is a colored base with some sort of flake in it. It's usually, I believe Reaper usually uses mica for their flake right now. And the two can be different colors. For example, in emerald green, it won't show up on the camera, but you'll see when we get into using it. The base for emerald green is green, but the flake in it is gold. So that means you can have some fun doing some neat things with it. So that the flake in these bottles, let me shake this up, maybe it'll stay put better. There we go. It will do a few things. It will make the paint a little bit thicker, and it will mix differently than regular paints. Let's see. Okay. So that's metallic paint. Let's move on to thinning your paint. Clear these away. So I mentioned that I would not recommend using water to thin your metallics. The reason for that is what makes metallic paint shiny is all those little sparkly bits staying in suspension in the paint. If you mix water into your metallic paint, those flakes are heavier and will settle out of the puddle over time. If you just need a very quick, metallic paint job, then water is fine. Or if you tend to get a little water on your brush and then get your paint and then paint, then it's fine. James Wapple does his metallics that way. I'm a little lazy and I like to mix my paint and then just paint. And so I don't have to worry about thinning each brush stroke. So I would recommend I use Reaper's wash medium. Jim Swapple is a sorcerer. He does things with paint. I'm like, I don't know how you're doing it, but it's beautiful and I love it. Oh, another question. How do you feel about some of the extended range of Reaper metallics like Drow, Silver, Scale, Mermaid Scale? Oh, I love the colored metallics that Sadie has been coming out with. And actually, let me grab Mermaid Scale. So the cool thing, and actually this is cool. Mine is actually separated a little bit because I haven't stirred it up in a while. I've recently moved, so I haven't had time to paint. So you can see that there is some teal binder in here, or not binder, medium. There is some blue in here, and at the bottom is the turquoise flake that she used. So you can see that there's different components to metallic paints, just like regular paints. And it's the colors in them that will make playing with colored metallics so fun. Great question. I love Mermaid Scale. All right. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, talked about thinning it. Oh, so I would not recommend using, so Reaper also makes brush on sealer and gloss sealer. I would not recommend brush on sealer because, let's see, it settled a little bit. Their brush on sealer has some white matting agent in it, which the whole purpose of that is to make whatever you put it over the top of less shiny, which is kind of the opposite of what you want with metallic paints. Oops, I just dropped something on the floor. Well, probably not important. So I have tried mixing metallics with brush on sealer, and I've tried putting this over the top of metallics, and it really dulls things down. It gives it sort of a satin look, which is kind of cool. You might want to experiment with that, but it's not really ideal. Gloss sealer, you can mix it with metallics. It won't do any harm, but it is a bit thicker than wash medium. So it'll keep your metallics fairly glossy, but it won't necessarily thin them down. So, okay. I think, let's see. I don't know that Reaper has made any hot pinks other than their prom night pink. And that's more of a pearlescent than a metallic. So, but we'll talk about those a little bit later. And actually, you can make your own hot pink. We're going to be doing that. I have not tried Stuart Semple's mirror paint. That is on my list of paints to acquire. It's quite long. All right. So, a caveat to thinning paint. When I'm mixing with paints and I'm trying different colors, I don't generally thin my mixture until I've found the color that I'm happy with. Otherwise, I would use up all of my wash medium very quickly because I love to mix paints. All right. So that's enough of me talking. We're here to paint. So go ahead and grab your little Rocky, or if you haven't glued it together, grab the little dragonfly and our bottle of emerald green. Army Painter colored metallic set. Ooh, I have not played with theirs. 1 second, let me get this. There we go. That's better. Too many things on my head. Isn't a sealer designed by name to go over the paint and non-edit? Normally, yes, but I try mixing different paint products together just to see what will happen. And for quite a while, I was using brush on sealer to thin my regular paints because, again, I wanted my paint to not be shiny. So, it is by nature just designed to be, used to cover it, but you can use it to thin stuff as well. Great question. Okay, so we're grabbing our emerald green. So one type of colored metallics is pre-mixed. It's already, fresh out of the bottle. Don't have to do anything real weird to it. The benefits of it is it's already mixed. And if you don't have a lot of time, that could really be nice. Or let's say it's exactly the color that you want. So grabbing our emerald green, and we are going to paint the dragonfly's body with emerald green. Oh, I forgot to get fresh rinse water. Well, that's all right. It's gonna I'm gonna make it pretty messy anyways. Okay. There we go. And where's my wash medium? There we go. So when it comes to thinning metallics, I generally use 1 drop of wash medium to 2 drops of emerald green. However, that formula varies greatly. So that is just a starting point. Different paint lines from different companies can vary in how thick or thin they are. Reaper's metallics tend to be fairly thin out of the bottle already, whereas, for example, Scale 75, their metallics are gorgeous, but they are very thick. So I tend to have to thin those more heavily. Also, as your paints get older, they start to get thicker. So I've got some metallics that I've had since I started painting, and I need to add quite a bit more thinning agent to them. Okay, so you can, I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Yeah, it's like, it's shiny. What more do you want? There we go. So you might be able to see there's the shiny gold in there from the flake, but the base itself is green. Yeah, this is a cool wet palette. It's actually made for watercolors, so it's kind of a pain to clean out, but it's really handy to use. Oh, so we are just going to do the dragonfly's body in emerald green, just like that. I guess I could go up a little bit forward. So we will not be completely painting the whole miniature in this class. We do not have the time for that. We're only going to be painting sections of Rocky. Okay. Good question. Okay, so that is pre-mixed metallics. Next, let's say, we don't have the metallic color that we're looking for, or we want to try something new. So you can make your own metallic. So that is where our friend, the metal medium, comes into play. All right, let's see. So there are pros and cons to mixing your own metallics. The benefit is you have complete control over what goes into it, although you may not have complete control over what the resulting mixture is, which I'll show an example of that later. The downside is it does take a bit longer, and it can sometimes be a little difficult to recreate a particular mixture. So I don't know. I enjoy it. Okay. So there's a few different ways to mix your own metallic paint. You can use a single pigment paint, like, let's see. Clear red, for example. You can use an acrylic ink, like, let me grab an example. Here we go. Here's an acrylic ink you can use. You can use regular paint, which we will get into a little bit later, or you can use pearlescent like Reaper's Pearl White. The emerald green is one of your favorite paints now. Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun. Okay. So did that. Oh, hold on, back up. I skipped a step. I skipped a step that we will need so we can play later. So while we've got the dragonfly, go ahead and grab your blade steel. And we are going to paint these two dragonfly wings with our blade steel. That's so we can do some work with them a little bit later, and this paint will have time to dry. How do you know if a paint has only one pigment? Oh, that is a great question. So generally, they will be marketed by whatever company made them a little bit differently. Some call them, single pigment. I've seen other companies call them translucent, or uh, intended for glazing, possibly. Most of my experience with regular paints is with Reaper, so I'm not as familiar with different single pigment paints in other paint lines. I think that the Tamiya, let's see, where are they? Here we go. Like for example, there's the Tamiya. I always say it wrong. Their clears are a single pigment. So like I said, they will oftentimes be marketed a little bit differently from their regular paint lines. So we're putting blade steel on the dragonfly's wings so we can do some glazing over them later. And it doesn't have to be a solid coat, just enough to cover it. Yes, Reaper's clear line is their 1, 2, 2 pigment line. I listened to Anne talk about them a few times, and most of them have just one pigment, but there are a couple that needed two. I don't remember which one those are off the top of my head, but she had to do that in order to make sure that the color came out the way that she needed. How well do metallics work with airbrushes? Ooh, that is a good question. So I don't personally own or use an airbrush. I do know that there are metallics specifically made for airbrushes, like Vallejo makes a air line that their metallics are specifically meant for airbrushing. As far as other metallic, from Reaper and for others, you'll have to get a hold of somebody that actually does do airbrushing, because I won't be able to help you much with that. I'm sorry. Okay, so we got our blade steel in there. Okay, so let's talk about metal medium. So metal medium is literally just a clear base with the mica flake in it. Well, I'm not sure what Vallejo uses, but it's just shiny in a bottle, which is what makes it so fun to mix with other things. So when you're mixing with a metal medium, let's go ahead and grab your clear red. And where did my paladin go? It was just here. Okay. So we're going to set Rocky aside for just a moment and pull out our paladin guy. So when you're mixing things with metal medium, what you have to remember is it will behave like a white. So if you mix it with red, for example, go ahead and grab your clear red and your metal medium, or your filigree silver, or your pearl white, if that's what you've got, and mix it with your clear red. So what do you get when you mix red with white? You get pink. Mix it up there. So we're going to go ahead and put this mixture onto this guy's cloak. Just so you can see, it makes kind of a, oh, that is not covering well. Kind of a hot reddish pink color. So it's not quite the red. Oh, my camera is not showing that very well at all. So it is not the same red that was in the bottle. When we mixed it with the metal medium, it turned it fairly pink. So yeah, the reason why it does that is because all of the little flakes in this bottle basically act like thousands of tiny little mirrors. And because those mirrors are all jumbled together when they're in a puddle like this, it acts as a, what is it, a broad spectrum reflector. I think I got the terminology correct. Whereas when you smooth those out by painting with them, they all line up and they reflect light differently. Okay, let's see. Would you use metallics on a wet palette or just a well palette? Ooh, that is a good question. So I generally use weld palettes for metallics because I mix with them a lot. Um, if you tend to leave paint sitting for a long time on your weld palette, like I do, I would not recommend it because water will start to seep into your metallic puddle over time and it will start to thin it out and then the flake will start to settle out of it. So you can recover it by adding some wash medium to it, but that tends to make it too thin. So if you're just going to be, using your weld or your wet palette for like a few hour paint session, it's probably fine. Let's see. Good question. Let's see. Okay, so someone answered the airbrush question. It can work, but the flakes make thin needles difficult and it eats in the airbrush. So, okay, so again, because there's more stuff in the metallics, it sounds like it can clog the needle a little bit if you use really thin needles. Thank you for answering. That was from Aaron Loves Joy's Airbrush 101. Okay, so that is red. So we're going to put red aside. We're going to grab our clear purple. And we're going to pick up Rocky again. And we are going to be painting his wing membranes. So grab your clear purple and your metallic medium. So one of the most important things when mixing colors is do not be afraid to experiment. And you may need to adjust. Let's say, okay, so I've gotten this mixture here. And oh, that's a little bit darker than I want. I want that to be a little bit lighter. So I'll grab my middle medium and add a little bit more. Or let's say it came out too light, in which case I would grab more purple. And again, I'm not giving any specific formula for how much middle medium to add to your paint because it will vary depending on what paint color you want to end up with. So I'm going to take this purple mixture. And so I'm not thinning these demonstration colors just so that I can get a quick one coat coverage for the camera. So normally I would be thinning these and doing more than just one coat. Very, very messy coat. That's okay. We'll be going back over we're going to be going back over these ribs here between the membranes shortly. So you can see that's a fairly nice shiny purple, sort of a medium purple color. There we go. You just don't want to stand up, do you? Here we go. Your elf friend will help hold you. All right, so that is that. Oh, and while we have our clear purple, go ahead and put a couple of coats on his little head spikes here so that we can use them for a different demonstration later. So we're going to be seeing what happens when you glaze metal medium over a color and how that is different from mixing the metal medium into your paint. You don't need to paint all of his head spikes, just a few, just for a demonstration. Oh, that is fairly dark. Let me see if I can. There we go. That's a little better. You can see just a few little scales on his head. All right, rinse my brush out. Oh, speaking of rinsing your brush out, so I would strongly recommend having two different rinse cups for when you're working with metallics, because I don't know, let's see. Well, yeah, you can't really see that, and I can't tip it sideways. So when you rinse metallics out of your brush, it will put glitter into your paint water. And let's say that you're switching back and forth between painting weapons and armor and cloth. You don't necessarily want all those sparkly bits in your cloth. So, two different rinse cups. Some people even use different brushes for their metallics and their regular paints. Again, I'm lazy and I want to just paint, so I tend to use the same brush for both. Oh, I've heard that metallics can contaminate a wet palette, so I always use them on a weld palette. Yeah, I can see that, especially if it runs off the side of your parchment paper and then those sparkly bits are in your sponge for the rest of forever. So yeah, that's another reason why, I like to use the weld palette. Good point. Okay, so done that, we've done that. Oh, okay. So next are Demi Metallics. So Demi Metallics involves mixing regular paint with metal medium. Okay, so we're going to put our clear purple aside, and Rocky will sit over there to dry. We're going to grab our fire orange and our metal medium. So Demi Metallics requires so much experimenting in order to see what will happen. The reason for that is a pigment that is added to a lot of paints called titanium white. And I think it's titanium dioxide, I want to say. I might be wrong. But what it is it is added to a lot of paints because it helps increase the coverage of the paint. Now, that while that's wonderful for normal paint uses, what that does to metallic paints is that titanium white will cover up all the little mirrors in our metallic paint because it's so large relative to the sparkly bits. So to demonstrate, we're going to mix our fire orange with some metal medium. And if you don't have this, I will try to, I'm hoping that the camera will be able to show it adequately. I might switch over to a bigger well so you can watch as I'm mixing. There we go. So as I'm mixing, the shininess and the sparkle from the metal medium mostly disappeared. You can see just a tiny bit of sparkle there. But if I try to paint with it on my palette in here, we'll see that it's just not very shiny. I'll put it on his shield here. It's got a little bit of a sheen to it, closer to a pearlescent. But yeah, that doesn't really look metallic at all. It's because there is titanium white in this fire orange. And as far as how do I tell if there's titanium white in it or not? Well, you'll just have to try mixing them because it's a little bit sneaky and you might not always know when it's in a paint. For example, it might be in, I don't know what a great example would be. Yeah, so you'll just have to try it and find out for yourself. Let's see. Speaking as a parent, if it is anything like glitter, it is yeah, it is I would say a cousin to glitter. It's just very, very tiny. In fact, when I've been working with metallics, I oftentimes my fingers will get a little bit sparkly, especially if I'm dry brushing. Oh, then there's glitter everywhere. So if you're gonna dry brush with your metallics, do that before you paint anything else, because otherwise you'll get glitter all over your cloth. I learned that the hard way. I nearly finished a miniature. I realized I'd missed a section of chainmail. I just dry brushed it real quick, and then I had to spend an hour repainting the cloth around the chainmail. So yeah, do your dry brushing first. Okay, so we did that. Okay, so we're going to set our palette aside. Thank you for helping me demonstrate. We're going to grab our clear red and our clear yellow. So I wanted to use clear orange for this demonstration. However, this is a limited edition paint, so you can't buy it from Reaper right now. And I didn't think it was fair to include a limited edition paint on the list of required materials. So if you have clear orange, go ahead and grab it. But if you don't, we're going to mix clear red and clear yellow together. So I have found that 2 drops of clear red, I'll put it in this middle palette here, and 3 drops of clear yellow give a pretty close approximation to, this is a little bit clogged. This gives a pretty close approximation to clear orange. Yellow everywhere. 1, 2, 3. And a little bit of our metal medium. So metal medium is fairly thick. If you're going to use it by itself, you will need to thin it quite a bit. Okay, and let's mix this up. So another thing is, because it's so thick, you might need to spend a little bit more time mixing your paint together. Okay, that's a little bit more red than I want. So I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more yellow, like half a drop. Half a drop of yellow. There we go. That's a little closer to the orange that I wanted. Oh, I'm missing some questions. Do you have any advice on undercoats? Like orange is great for gold and black for silvers, but works best for pearl white, etc. Ooh, so we will get into undercoating with colors a little bit later in the class. So hang in there. We'll get to that. So how many drops of each? So I put 2 drops of clear red and three drops of the clear yellow. And then about 1 drop of the metal medium, roughly. Okay, so we're going to use this on these little ribs right in between the purple here. So I discovered something interesting when I mixed this color up. I was trying to get orange, and I ended up with sort of almost a day glow orange the first time I mixed it. So it wasn't quite the this color orange that I was going for. And after I've put a few layers on my example, I'll show you what I found when I was preparing for this class. And you will probably need a few coats of this. It is quite thin. Again, because we're using those clears, we don't have that lovely titanium white helping our paints cover more quickly and easily. So there we go. So where's my demo guy? Oh, here we go. So, well, actually, no, that's pretty much the same. Yeah, so you can see, oops, it came out kind of a bright day glow orange. Whereas this time that I mixed it, it came out a little bit more red. Oops, let me move that more on camera. So that's why you have to play with your ratios a little bit because depending on how much you put of different colors, you'll get different results. And that's true with regular paints as well. All right, grab some water. Hunter Safety Orange. Yeah, it is. It is a very bright orange. It was not what I was expecting. So I was like, I wasn't expecting that. I'm going to use it in my class to show that sometimes you get really interesting results. And, let's say that that's not what I wanted. So then I would, go back and try a different combination. Because again, remember, the metal medium acts like white. So that will alter your final result. All right, so we've got that. All right, so let's talk about pearlescence. Oh, Rocky took a nosedive into my palette. Okay, so that is Demi Metallics. Yes. All right, we're going to grab our pearl white next. Move our metal medium aside for now. And our clear blue. So the cool thing about pearl white is it's a white base and the flake in it is also white. So it will behave a little bit differently from the metal medium because the metal medium, the flake is more of a silver. So these two will have slightly different results when you mix them. So we're going to mix pearl white and clear blue. And we are going to be painting Rocky's little claws here on his front paw. I'm going to give him a manicure, or her. Everybody needs to feel a little pretty sometimes. There we go. There's some of our pearl white and our clear blue. Oops. And depending on how much clear blue I add, I could get a real pale blue. So you can see I only added a little bit of the blue. Get in there. So that makes a really pretty bright sky blue. Or if I add a little bit more, it will give me a darker pearlescent blue. Ta-da! It all depends on what you're looking for. Don't be afraid to try new things and play mad scientist. Okay. Paint Rocky's little nails there. There we go. You can see there's our pearlescent color. Once it dries, you'll see that it's a little bit shimmery, but not super shiny metallic. I just glittered my finger. All right. Oh, so if I'm going too fast or let's say I'm out of camera or you have a question, please let me know. Because that's one of the hard parts about doing this virtually is I can't see you. I can't see, where you're at in your painting or if you're confused or if you need a little bit more time. And the nice thing is that this class is being recorded. So if you need to go back and watch it later, you can do that. You can listen to me stumble over my words over and over again, not just in real time. Okay, so that is pearl white. Let's see, what other things? I think that was it for the pearlescent. Okay, so that's pearl white. I'm going to set that aside. And actually, no, we'll keep our clear blue. We'll grab our wash medium. So what else can we do to add color to our metallics? You can use a glaze or a wash over an already metallic base. So you remember how earlier we put blade steel on our dragonfly. Now we're going to do a clear blue wash over these wings. So if we had more time, I'd do an actual glaze, but we don't have an hour to put multiple thin, very thin layers of paint over our metallic. So I'm just going to go with a wash for this demonstration. And when I'm doing a wash with Reaper Clears, I usually do 3 drops of wash medium to 1 drop of the clear. But again, that is not a hard, fast formula. I just find that that's usually what works. I may need to add a little bit more thinner, a little more wash medium if I want a thinner result. Or if it's too thin, then I will add a little bit more paint. Oh, so let's talk about washes real quick. So I think wash is rather an unfortunately named paint technique, because when I first started painting, I thought a wash meant you literally bathe the miniature in your wash. You just slop it all over your miniature. That's not actually what it means. A wash is just somewhat thinned paint. It's quite thin, so it's able to spread evenly over the surface of your miniature. So you get a little bit of the wash on your paint, and then you dab a little bit off on your paper towel, because you don't want to literally bathe your miniature in your wash. What that will do, so what dabbing it off does is it gives you a little bit more control over where that wash goes. There we go. And let's say I put way too much on. Oh, whoa, that is way too much. I can rinse my brush off, dry it off, and then use my brush as like a little sponge to soak up that extra wash. A little vacuum. There we go. Like magic. There we go. And you can see I got a little bit on the dragonfly's body where I didn't want it. That's just fine. It's just paint. I can paint over it. So I'll grab a little bit more of that green. And now it's gone. It never happened. Nobody needs to know. It's our secret. No, I mean, every painter makes mistakes and gets paint where they don't want it to be. So, I mean, I give everybody 100% permission to make mistakes. It's going to happen anyways, and it's okay. It's unless it's a truly drastic, error where, the miniature is physically damaged. Oftentimes you can recover your paint job because you can paint over paint. That's something I have to keep reminding myself, because it can be easy to be discouraged when I make mistakes and it's like, oh, it's completely ruined. I don't want to paint it anymore because it's not perfect. Well, there's a whole lot of, oh, how does Anne put it? There's a whole lot of ugly stages in between when you start and when you're finished. So, it's okay for your miniature to be in the ugly stage for a while. Oh, let's see. Shortly after I first started painting minis, my first instruction was a VHS tape about painting a 30 to 40 centimeter tall Terminator model. It taught me washing like that, just slop it on and let it go where it will. And I mean, if you just need a very quick miniature and, or you're doing terrain, you just need a real quick shade, then, it has its uses. But I have found that for the most, I mean, when you're first learning to paint, it can, I mean, like, for example, when you're painting a skeleton, if I just need some quick shading in all those little bones and crevices, it may be easier to just slop it in there and then dry brush the highlights back in, or go back in with my paintbrush over the top. So it's not to say that that's not that there aren't uses. So I mean, I've found that every different method of painting that I've learned is like a paint toolbox. And this might not be the right tool for this particular job, but it might be a tool for, a different job. It was the early 90s. I took what I could get for instruction. Yes. Yep. I'm very lucky that I started learning to paint when the internet was around and there were other painters sharing what they learned. So yeah. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay. So next we're going to try glazing a metallic over. Remember we put the purple on the head spikes. The camera doesn't really show it. So next you can do a wash of metallic over things. Where did my blade steel go? Oh, here it is. So we're going to grab blade steel and you'll thin that to a wash. So an important thing to remember when making a wash with metallics is that not every metallic will make a nice wash. For example, filigree silver is a very nice color, but I found that there's a little bit too much white in this. And so when I try to use it to wash over other colors, I can leave kind of a whitish, milky look. I found that blade steel makes a nice wash, although it is a bit on the gray side. So it has a tendency to desaturate what you're painting over unless you thin it quite a bit. Let's mix that up. And we're going to go over his little head spikes here. And then once I'm done with that, I will check to see if there's any more questions. A little thicker than I was expecting. That's okay. And last one over here. Share my camera. Now this light is not really letting that purple show up very well. So one of the cool things is, so remember this is clear purple and what we used on the wing is clear purple. Grab my example here so you can see both at the same time. You can see that the results are a little bit different. So even though we used clear purple for both examples, mixing metallic with your color and layering them can have different effects. So that's why, again, experiment, experiment, experiment. Keep trying things until you find the result that you want. Oh, so I did 1 drop of the blade steel and where's my wash medium? And 3 drops of the wash medium. Again, my blade steel is a little bit older, so you might not need to thin yours quite as much. Oh, can you use the metallic medium for this? Yes, you can, actually. Sure, let's do a metallic medium wash, or a metal medium wash. Just for fun. The thing to remember is this is very thick, and so you're going to need to thin it a lot. I found that it doesn't like to be made into a wash very well. So I'm going to start with 5 drops and we'll see if that's enough. It's really thick. You have to mix it up quite a bit. There we go. Let's see what that does. Oh, that's a little bit more of a glaze. So, I'm gonna put it on this this wing rib here. You can see. Okay, so I thinned it a little bit more than I needed to for a wash. You can see it added just a little bit of sparkle. So I maybe made it a little closer to a glaze. So yeah, you can use your metal medium as well. Good questions. Let's see. Nothing in Q&A. All right. Oh, so as we continue, be thinking of if there's any odd combinations or unusual things that maybe you've always wanted to try. Because I do leave a little bit of time at the end of the class to just explore different things, that I might not have in my class notes, because there's a whole world of things you can do with colored metallics. So, all right, let's see. I saw a question pop up. Let's see. What is the closest to a black metallic you found? Ooh, that's a fun question. Um, let's see. Yeah, we've got time. Let's talk about black metallic. So Reaper makes two different black metallics. Where is my adamantium? That's scorched metal. Here we go. So Reaper makes two different, what I would say, metallic blacks. I used Adamantium Black a lot more than I've used this one. This is in their Pathfinder line. This is in their core colors line. And they're fairly similar. This one is a little bit more gray, but sure, I'll do a quick demo of the Adamantium Black. It is a shiny black, and you can achieve this as well by glazing. Well, that is thick. Let me thin that a little bit. By glazing a metallic over a black undercoat. Or I also, yeah, I like using this for black armor. There we go. So here is Adamantium Black. And yeah, it is wet, but once it dries, you'll be able to see it's got a little bit of shine to it, just a little bit of sparkle. So yeah, Adamantium Black. Fun color. Great question. Okay, let's see. I'd like to do some kind of ombre metallic effects on some dragon wings and aquatic creatures. Ooh, so that will get into glazing and layering. I'm not sure, we might have time for that. So we'll see if we have time to explore that a little bit at the end of class. Oh, coal black from the holiday line. Let's see. Where is coal black? I don't think that is a metallic. It might have a little bit of, yeah, so coal black isn't a metallic. It might have a tiny bit of pearlescence to it. I'm not sure. I've only just used it as a just regular black, so I do know that peppermint white is a pearlescent though. So let's see. Oh, yep, adamantium. You bought adamantium black by accident. Yeah, sometimes there are happy little accidents like that. I just use cold iron and it is a nice soft shimmer look. Oh yeah, cold iron is another nice one. Let's see. Yeah, cold iron is a nice sort of a dark gray. I don't know if you can see it. Or there's also blackened steel is another nice one. See that's a more of a grayish black. All right, let's see. Okay, this, oh, Afterburn. That is a nice one. Oh, both Peppermint White and Sparkling Snow are both, where's my Sparkling Snow? Okay, so they're both pearlescents. Sparkling Snow is a little bit more gray. I don't know if the light's kind of, yeah, the Sparkling Snow is a little bit more gray than the Peppermint White. So they're fairly close. And also this is a little tiny bit of blue in it. So you can do some fun things with that. I have a lot of metallic paints. I don't know if you can see, this whole rack is just metallics. Okay, so let's move on to the next part because I'm really excited about this next part. So we're going to grab our clear blue and our dragon gold. So I was just kind of painting one day. I was thinking about colors and I thought to myself, what happens if I mix dragon gold with blue? I was like, well, yellow plus blue equals green. Let's try it. So grab your dragon gold and your clear blue, and we are going to do some mixing. So we're going to do 1 drop of the clear blue and 2 drops of dragon gold to start with. So 1 clear blue and 2 dragon gold. 1, 2. We're going to be putting this on Rocky's left leg, this leg right here. And don't worry about covering up the scales. We're just using this to test with. Okay. So mix those together. And we get kind of a greenish teal color. At least that's how it looks in my palette. Let's see how it looks on Rocky. Well, that's a lot more green on Rocky than it was in my palette. So that's why it is always important when you're testing new testing new metallic colors. I like to test them on what I call my crash test miniatures before I put it on the miniature that I'm actually interested in. So is that, like, for example, I like to use the bottom of a miniatures that I don't really need to test things. Here's one of my crash test miniatures. I was trying some things with silver and with inks over gold and mixing. So you can use bases. You can use, your thumbnail. You can use your palette, but make sure you test it on a flat surface because, oops, get all over my thumb, because your mixture will look a little bit different from when you when you smooth it out thin. Okay, so it's not coming through on camera very well. How does the green compare to the emerald green on the dragonfly? It's actually fairly close. It is actually fairly identical, and I did that on purpose. So, so that was 1 drop of clear blue to 2 drops of dragon gold. Next, what happens if we do 2 drops of clear blue and 1 drop of dragon gold? So we're going to test that on his right leg. So 2 drops of clear blue and 1 drop of dragon gold. Let's see what we get when we do that. Oh, interesting. This is turning out differently from when I tested it yesterday. That is really interesting. Because that's the thing about these dropper bottles is not every drop will be exactly the same. That's interesting. So this time my mixture resulted in a blue, but it's got some green undertones in it and some gold sparkle. Ah, the camera is not, let's see, maybe if I put something black under it, it'll get the white balance. Yeah, things go so well in rehearsal. Let's see if that helped a little bit. So it's sort of a midnight blue color. Yeah, I'll show you what I got earlier. So I got more of a spring green, like a bright yellowy green the first time I mixed these two. And then I got more of a turquoise color when I did this yesterday. So yeah, that's why it's important to experiment and try different things. And I'm getting blue all over the place. My goodness. This is not the first time I've accidentally left paint on my brush and painted all kinds of things. I've got gold in my speakers and my camera, and I've got scorched metal on my armrest, and I got sparkly stuff everywhere. Okay, so there's that. Let me check the questions. Oh, what is the difference between metallic and pearlescent? That is a great question. So pearlescent is more of a softer, sort of a shimmer more than is a sparkly, shiny look. So let me swatch the two. So here's a pearlescent, and then let me grab a metallic white. Actually, our middle medium will work as a metallic white. Where did I put it? There we go. I'm hoping that the camera will pick it up. Come on, stop blowing bubbles. So you don't have to do this part. You can if you want to, but I'm just going to demonstrate the two. So this is my middle medium. You can see that it behaves like a white because physics are cool. There we go. And here's my pearl white. And once the two dry, oh yeah, once the two dry, we'll be able to see a little bit better. But this is a much shinier, more sparkly look, and the pearlescent is a much softer. Yeah, let's try turning the slide off and see. Oh no, that did not help at all. Sorry. If I can kind of, yeah, it's metallics do not really photograph well, and they don't really translate through a camera very well. So yeah, it's easier to see in person. So if you're looking for a softer, maybe a more enameled sort of look, yes, sparkly versus sort of a satiny shimmer. Thank you. All right, let's see. Oh, we got 15 minutes left. Perfect. Okay. Oh, one thing that we have not covered is what happens if you mix a regular paint with a colored metallic. This is where things can get really weird. So I'm going to grab a new weld palette because this one is pretty much full. And let's see, I have not tested this part out, so let's try something. Let's do, oh, let's grab our mermaid scale. Let's see, what can we mix with mermaid scale that would be an interesting. Let's do mermaid scale and purple. Sure, let's see what happens when we mix mermaid scale with a purple color. Oh yeah, that's another good analogy. Pearlescent is more of like the inside of a shell compared to a shiny metallic surface. That is a great analogy. So when you're mixing colored metallics and regular paints, that starts getting more into color theory. So Aaron Hartwell, also known as Caporia, is amazing when it comes to color theory. I am not great at color theory. So, if you need some advice on color theory, she's a wonderful one to talk to. So, again, I have not done this mixture before, so I don't know if there's titanium white hiding in here or not. We're going to find out. Oh, no, looks like I'm good. It's staying nice and sparkly. Ooh, that is a neat color. All right, let's see. Where shall I put this? Let's grab our palette in again here. So I got lucky that time that the result, oh, it made sort of a lavender with a little bit of teal in it. That wasn't what I was expecting. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I happened to get lucky that I didn't grab a color combination that didn't work because that happens more often than it doesn't. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Can I mix two metallics together? I absolutely can mix two metallics together. Let's mix. I think that's where that went. Um, hmm. Actually, let's grab my Adamantium Black and let's see what it does to our Dragon Bold, wherever it went. I'm going to try mixing these two and see what happens. And again, because Adamantium Black is dark, I found that dark colors tend to want to eat up the brighter ones. I'm going to use just a little bit. Oh, that reminds me. Let's see, I want to darken a metallic. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay. Oh, interesting. It's turning a little bit greenish. That means there must be a little bit of blue in that adamantium black. That's very interesting. That's kind of an old antique gold kind of color, almost like an old bronze. Oh, that's cool. I like that. So yeah, that's adamantium black plus dragon gold. Okay, I'm having too much fun. Let me go back to the chat. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see. How do colored metallics compare to color shift paints? Oh, okay. So color shifting paints, I have a few. I have not had any opportunity. Well, okay. I haven't had many opportunities to really play with them. The difference is, and somebody else explained this to me. I didn't, go figure this out for myself. Color shifting paints, rather than flat little flakes, that act like little mirrors, there's tiny little prisms in the paint. And so that's why when they're laid flat, depending on what angle you're viewing them from, they will change what color you see. That is my understanding of iridescent paints. Okay, let's see. Any tips for iridescent effects or colors? I would try glazing colored metallics over, a colored base coat. Like let's say, ooh, let's do a glaze of this purple color I made over this orange, for example. I don't know if this will work, but we'll find out. So if I wanted a glaze, I need to be quite a bit thinner. Oh, and to get back to the sort of ombre effect, that is going to be getting more into just glazing different colors. So going from, let's say, you start with your blue and then you glaze a little bit of turquoise, a little bit further down, and it's going to take a lot more layers. It's going to take a lot more time to get that nice, real smooth blend between the colors. That's still a bit too thick. Let's try that. Okay, that really did not work well at all. Yeah, okay. This is a terrible example. So I would probably stick with colors that are a little bit closer to each other, like, blues, greens, purples, and then, and then keeping more of the warm colors together. Okay. If you find a color you like on accident, how do you remember it for the future? I write it down. And the nice thing about these dropper bottles is it makes it easy to write down formulas. Like, for example, let me show you my instructor notes, for example. So I wrote down, I got 2:1 clear blue to dragon gold. So it makes it very easy to write down formulas. So I have 2 drops of clear blue and 1 drop of dragon gold. So that's how I remember my formulas. Everybody's a little bit different. Paint journals. Yes, paint journals are wonderful. Oh, yeah, write it down quickly before you forget. With preferably with swatches of the ingredient colors and the final product. I wish I was that organized. I at least write down the formula. Oh, do I have a master list with color examples? Um, oh, so a paint journal is just, a place where you write down, different colors that you mixed that you liked, or let's say, I was painting this paladin and I wrote down, I put this color on his shield and this color on his cloak, so that if I wanted to replicate that on a different miniature, then I could go back into my journal and, there are my formulas. And let's see. Yeah, I don't have a master list with color examples just because there are way too many options for for mixing things together. Oh, so really quick before I forget, let's say I want to darken a silver. Let's say I've got my filigree silver and I want to make it darker. So I love Reaper's brown liner. It is a very versatile paint. I use it as a primer for bones, which you can see I did on these two. You can use it as an actual lining color. That means using it, in between different areas of color. You can use it to shade things. You can use it to make washes and glazes. Or you can use it to darken the metallic. And again, a little bit goes a long way. So I don't know if the camera showed it, but I used maybe half a drop of brown liner. Yeah, that was maybe not quite enough. And use just another tiny little bit. And sometimes especially with my dark colors, I'll put the color off to the side so I have a little more control over how much gets mixed in. There we go. You can see, and the nice thing about Reaper's liner colors is they behave fairly similarly to a single pigment paint, I've found. So they don't tend to interfere with the metallic, the shiny properties of the metallic. So you can see, let me swatch really quick here. So there's my darkened filigree silver. And there's actually not as much difference as I would have liked. Let's see. Come on. Okay, again, so this is why it's important to test your mixtures on a flat surface. So even though these two colors look quite different on my palette, they look pretty much the same actually on the figure. So again, that's why having crash test minis is important. Or again, you could do it, on your, you could spread it out on your palette. Whoops. Or a piece of paper. I would not recommending your cat or your child. They don't tend to like that. Thumbnail. I'll oftentimes test things on my thumbnail. I don't like to paint on my skin directly. It's just, that's not something I like to do, but my nails are fine. Okay. Let me see if there's any last questions. So I feel like there was a question I missed earlier that I said I would come back to. Start that one. I mixed two metallics, talked about color shifting paints. Oh, there's an app. I use the Brush Rage app to keep track of any mixes I use and just track and keep track of my inventory as well, and a notebook for color swatches. Oh, undercoating. Yes, that's what I was forgetting. Okay, so let me clear the decks a little bit here. So one of my favorite parts of my class is usually what I will do is I will have everybody pick a different color to paint the sheet, the back of this miniature with. So I'll have everybody pick their favorite color, and then I have them try different metallics over the top of it. And everybody gets really excited. They're like, oh, this looks so cool. This looks so different. I wasn't expecting that. And so since we can't do it in person, I went ahead and did it for you. So let's talk about these a little bit, my little multicolored elf friends here. All right, let me make sure that they're all on camera. Okay, so we've got quite a few different colors here. So I used the same metallic over each one. I used Dragon Gold, Dragon Copper, and Blade Steel. So two of those colors, actually, I'll pop them into frame here. So Dragon Gold, Blade Steel, and where's my Dragon Copper? Here we go. And Dragon Copper. So that's what I used on all of these elves. So the importance of base coating with colors, especially for silvers, which tend to be fairly translucent, is that whatever you use underneath will show through, especially if you thin your metallics nicely. So for example, this nice pale blue here, it leaves kind of a frosty effect. It makes the silver look quite cold. And the same thing with the with the other two. Whereas over the red, it looks very warm. And I didn't the coating isn't quite as even as I would like. So you can see that. So I love undercoating gold with red because it makes it so nice and warm. Undercoating copper with orange makes it this very bright sort of new penny sort of color, very bright. So undercoating a metallic with a similar color can intensify that color. For example, like so Reaper makes a purple metallic drow silver. I love it. It's one of my favorites. I found that if I do drow silver over a purple, it like intensifies the purple. It makes it really purple. So I, you can see that it looks different over white versus, where's my black? Here we go. So over white, it's a little bit more dull, whereas over black, it's a little bit more shiny. So, oh goodness. I lost track of the time. That is all the time that we have together, friends. Okay, let me just see if there's any super quick last minute questions. No, it looks like that is it. Oh, let me get the code for my little boot emoticon for in Discord. So you can join my brush squad, my boot squad, my boot brigade. Paint rack is also great for keeping track of inventory. Okay, well, I hope everybody had a great time. So whenever I teach a class, I really want my students to, finish class with three things. I want them to have had fun. I want you to have learned at least one new thing. And most important, I want you to be able to not be afraid to try new things. Mix paint, just try new things. To quote Miss Frizzle, I'll probably misquote it, but make mistakes. Oh, what is it? Make mistakes and get messy. I know there's a third part and I can't remember it, but yep, just have fun. So thank you for coming. This class couldn't have happened without you, because otherwise I would just be talking to myself. Take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. Thank you, Amanda. So thank you again. If you have any questions, I'm available on Discord or on the Reaper forums. There's the handout pinned in my Discord, or you can contact me on the forums and I can get you the PDF there as well. So, all right. Well, thank you again. Bye. Let's stop the recording. There we go.